Greetings. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. I hope you're well. Hope whatever you're doing, courtesy of this bloody COVID-19 lockdown we're all experiencing, well, most places across the globe, except for Sweden, and we talk about that in this episode of the podcast. I hope you're keeping sane, put it that way. Which brings me to the interview subject for this installment of the show. Zack Anderson is the guitarist and very excellent, is that even correct English? Whatever. In the very excellent Swedish rock and soul outfit Blues Pills. He is an outstanding guitarist, I must say. So I know most of the people listening to this are right into their heavy and extreme metal, and I am too, don't get me wrong, as you can clearly tell, because I'm hosting the bloody podcast series, but it's nice to listen to some different things occasionally. And Blues Pills, courtesy of their new album for 2020, Holy Moly, offer that alternative. So let's hear what Zack Anderson, the guitarist in Blues Pills, has to say about their new album and a few other things. Let's go.
Hello.
Hi, Zack. It's Andrew Mackay-Smith calling for our chat. How you going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. What time are you in? Obviously, you're in Sweden at the moment. So what time is it over there, mate?
10 o'clock.
Oh, it's a bit early for you, isn't it? It's bloody early for a rock and roller to be getting up and doing interviews, isn't it?
No, it's not that too bad. I usually get up like at 9 o'clock. So.
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, okay. Well, how's Sweden, obviously...
What time is it there?
It's 6 p.m, so almost the witching hour. Almost. Definitely the witching hour for me, because I've got two kids and I've just cooked them dinner. So thank God I managed to get that in before our call, otherwise I'd be banging on the door and asking me what the hell's going on. You know. So how's things in, just before we kick things off from the musical perspective, mate, are you in Stockholm or are you outside the city?
Well, I live in a city called Karlstad, which is like quite a small city, but it's, for Sweden, I guess it's like a bit of one of the bigger ones, but it's not very big. I think it's like a few 100,000 people.
Okay, rightio. Yeah, and what's the coronavirus situation like in the city then there where you're from? Is it, because I know Sweden hasn't done the whole lockdown thing. Has it coronavirus really taken a hold in the city, or has it been a bit of that herd immunity thing where it's just a few people getting sick and everybody who, like getting really sick that is, and the majority of people who are getting sick are asymptomatic?
I mean, it haven't been like feeling like it's out of control or anything like that. I mean, it's like, I don't really know why or anything, but I think maybe it's because in Sweden in general, people are so like distant to begin with.
Sure.
But basically, I mean, it haven't, I know I have one friend who's working at the hospital, and it's not like the hospital have been overwhelmed or anything like that. It's just mostly been like elderly people there. And I mean, I've heard of maybe one or two people that were my age that had corona and got healthy again.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's not like you have a feeling that it's like spreading rampantly.
Yeah, I think we're about to go back into lockdown, unfortunately, because one of our states over here, Victoria, has had massive increases. You know, hundreds, 2, 3, 4, 500, I think even 600 a day increase, and we're not that. I know there's far more people in Australia than there are in Sweden too, but people travel a lot, particularly between the major capitals. And I have a feeling our state borders are going to get locked down again, which is a bit unfortunate because of the impact on the economy. But what the hell can we do, mate? You know, it's a bloody pandemic, and we've got to try to get rid of it somehow. But I've spoken to a lot of musicians from Sweden, it must be said, since this. Not a lot, I shouldn't say, but I've spoken to a few, put it that way. And I think Sweden might have actually got the approach correct, and not lock down the economy the way Australia and New Zealand, and I know, well, New Zealand has bugger all population, so they're not really a good example. But for us, we've got 25 million people or so. It's a tough one, mate, because I know people in nursing homes are dying, and people. Yeah, there's even babies that have got it who are struggling. I think it's that balance between societal welfare and ensuring that we don't go into massive amounts of debt as a country and as states, and our children's children will end up paying it off, because I think that's actually what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really weird situation.
It's fucked
Seems
up,
like
brother.
no one have the answers, I guess.
I know. I just hope. You know what? I just hope it's not all a big con, and I don't think it is. But the reality is, far more people die of influenza every year, and it targets virtually the same people, vulnerable people who have medical conditions and elderly. Yet we don't lock down for that. So I tell you what I do think should happen if this global investigation outside of the World Health Organization goes ahead, because they're useless. China should be made to pay repatriations to countries for this, because they did lie about it. There's no question about that. They absolutely lied about it, and we could have got on top of it before it got to this point if they were in step with the global community and they were acting as a diligent global citizen and informed countries that their citizens who were travelling out were carrying this bloody thing, because that's how it started, of course. And I don't think there's any doubt it started there. It 100% started in China, but it's just whether or not now it started in a laboratory or whether or not did come from the wet market. But certainly the credible intel that I'm getting a hold of as a journalist is that it did start in a laboratory.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, mate. But, mate, we're not going to solve the world's problems between you and I. Let's talk about the music, because I do enjoy what you guys do. And I tell you, it was Heidi Solheim from Pristine. I had a chat to her a few years ago, and we talked about you guys. And that was my introduction to you. And you are one of the two rock and soul bands, the other one, of course, being Heidi's Pristine, that Nuclear Blast have signed, which is incredibly interesting, because I think Nuclear Blast did that before Earache went on their binge of signing similar groups to you guys, like Rival Sons and Blackberry Smoke. So metal fans have effectively taken to the sort of music that you're creating, and it's not just metal fans though; it's rock fans too. But look, this new album, Holy Moly, it's a cracker. And my take on it is that, and I know, look, apologise if you've heard this before, but look, if anybody, I plan on releasing this as a podcast, if that's okay, episode of my podcast. But if anybody loves Led Zeppelin, look, Cream, Leonard Skinner, even early Rainbow or Deep Purple, this album is an incredibly worthy addition to your collection. So I guess my first question for you, mate, would be that you work hard on these things and you put your soul into it. So did it turn out the way you hoped it would?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, like, when we went into it, I don't think we really had any expectations of, like, where it was going to go, to be honest, because we were starting with sort of almost like this clean slate, since the band had quite a long break before that, and then we went through some lineup changes and everything. Mm-hmm. So that it ended up being like 2 or 3 years of a break in between albums. And when it's that long, when we finally came back and started to work on this album, it sort of almost felt like it was just like a new band just beginning in a way. And so it was really like just this fresh take on it, I guess, just fresh take on the band in some way. So
for sure,
I think when we started the process, we just sort of told ourselves that we should just go in the studio and just write songs and just let it happen. Whatever happens comes out, and that's what we did.
You're right about it almost being a new band, because you're a bass player who evidently plays guitar excellently, so I can identify with that a little bit, although I'm nowhere near the guitarist you are, because I play both as well, but I'm principally a bass player. And you played bass on every recording up until this one, so what happened? Did Dorian step out of the band before the recording got underway, and were you forced to record everything yourself? And if that's not the way it all worked out, can you tell me what happened with the band members stepping out and inspiring you to switch from bass to the guitars for the recording?
Yeah, I mean, he was gone quite quite long before we even started the album. I can't remember exactly like amounts of time, but it had been a while. And then when he left, like, I think in the beginning, it wasn't that I sort of decided immediately, or we didn't decide immediately that I would like switch to the guitar. We did consider other guitarists and things, but then I guess the decision sort of came down to the fact that, well, it's been me and Elin are the ones who formed the band and also like have written all the songs since the beginning. And so when we started writing songs again, we didn't want to like wait for finding another band member to start writing songs. And then since we had already started this process, it's like, well, I'm already writing the songs and playing the guitar on the demos. So why make things more difficult? Maybe we should just continue in this direction. And so I started to like, I guess the biggest change for me was, of course, that I started to just put more focus into practicing the lead guitar specifically.
Was that, it might, sorry for, again, if it's an obvious question, but I know for me, it takes quite a while for me to build up my guitar chops after I've been playing bass. Did you find that was the case? And did you find that, was it one of those situations where you were playing bass on the guitar, so to speak, or are you naturally a guitarist as well?
I mean, I guess the thing is that I've been playing guitar the whole time. Like when I've written songs, even when I played bass in the band, I always wrote songs on the guitar.
Okay.
So like it was that part of it was comfortable, but it was mainly like the lead guitar because, you know, when Dorian was in the band, I still wrote the songs basically, but like when it came to soloing, I could just sort of say to him like, yeah, take a solo there, and I didn't have to worry about it, you know.
Sure, yeah.
And then now so it was mainly just like the lead guitar playing that I had to like really focus on and build that up, but otherwise it wasn't like a massive transition, you know. It was mainly just that with the lead guitar playing. You
know what is interesting, listening to your comments there. So I could hear that you'd written the earlier albums because there's really no change in style between previous albums and this one here. And as you well know, so say for example, I'm just going to pick a band where they switch guitarists, Faith No More. You could absolutely hear when Jim Martin stepped out of the band because he has an inimitable style. But in your case, it's clearly evident, even without, like for me as a musician, I could hear that it was you writing the stuff before because there's not that change in style and direction that other bands have experienced. So do you think that'll change moving forward, that you'll just stick with the band as it is right now, or is that the hope, that you'll just leave the lineup as it is and you'll just play the guitars live and you'll keep the bass player that you've got?
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. But I think that was like also a bit of the plan when I switched to the guitar. That was like one thing we did. That was part of like the decision, was that it felt like a future-proof solution because it's like, as I said, since me and Elin formed the band, we're kind of like the core members. And then if I switch to the guitar, then we never have to worry about a guitar player ever again, basically. So, so yeah, I think this lineup should be lasting for sure. I mean, I know so far we're really satisfied with the new bass player, Christopher. So, and he's also a friend. He's been a friend since years before he joined the band. So it's also nice when you have someone that you already know on a personal level.
It absolutely is. It makes things a lot easier. Yeah, when you understand their personality and their idiosyncrasies prior to going on tour. So Sweden, as we've already discussed, isn't in lockdown. So have you had an opportunity to perform parts of Holy Moly live yet?
No, well, not really live. We did like a couple of live streams, but at that time we only were like allowed to play I think 2 or 3 songs, because those were just the singles that were out, we've already released, and they didn't want us to like give away all the songs from the album yet. But
Yeah.
we but besides that, I mean, we rehearsed the songs, so we've been practicing sometimes when we can, not practicing as often as we normally would, but when we do practice, we're mostly practicing all the new songs. So we're playing it live for ourselves anyway.
Yeah. I like what you did with Guitar World, by the way, with Low Road. I thought that was excellent. I love when Guitar World get an artist such as yourself. I grew up, I'm 42, so I've grown up listening to the greats, you know, the Satrianis and the Vais and stuff, but frankly, I'm over them. And something that I was talked about with Marcus Jadell, of course, from Avatarium, one of your fellow countrymen, who I think is a magnificent guitarist, you know, is that they need to, Guitar World and Guitar Player and all of these guitar-centric, they're not magazines anymore, as we know, they're social media accounts, but they need to be giving you guys more exposure. To me, they actually have an obligation to be able to do that. So did you enjoy doing that for Guitar World?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool to, when I was younger, you sort of saw Guitar World as like the biggest name in guitar in some way. It felt like this,
Absolutely.
only the legends were featured there, so it was a bit surreal in a way to be making anything for them, so that was cool. I think when I remember as a kid, like getting Guitar World magazines and learning songs from there and stuff, so
Likewise,
that was fun for sure.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. You're in it now. You've made the grade. Yeah, so that, I mean, it's fantastic to see, mate. I love it when passionate musicians such as yourself are able to be recognised by these publications, and then people who otherwise would not have heard you are introduced to you, because, as we know, the musician audience, so people who listen to music, which is pretty much what the category that I fall into, I listen to not necessarily just bands, but I actually love listening to individual musicians. So, say for example, whenever I'm listening to Morbid Angel, by and large, I'm listening to Trey's guitar playing. Of course, there's so much other wonderful stuff around it with David's vocal and Pete's drumming and some of the new guys that they've got in the band. But I really do focus on the musician's performance. And with, I got to say, with Blues Pills, Elin is a fantastic singer, but I'm actually listening to you. So I'm trying to figure out why you made decisions that you did, sort of amps that you used, the sort of guitars that you decided that you wanted to use for different tracks. So can you tell me about the guitars that you decided to use, the brands of guitars that you decided to use, and why you decided to use them on the album?
Yeah, I guess the main guitars that I used were, well, I have an American Professional Stratocaster, just like a pretty new one, which I like a lot because I mean, I've been into all kinds of vintage stuff since I was a teenager, and I have lots of vintage stuff as well. But I think with the new American Fenders, they've gotten really good in the last few years for some reason. I don't know why exactly, but there's something about them that I just feel like it almost feels to me like similar to a vintage instrument, but just being brand new, like
Sure.
with the way the pickups sound and the bodies feel and everything. So I really love that American Professional series. Like, there's something as well about just the shape of the bodies that I feel like they got it right, because it felt like for a lot of years Stratocasters, the contours in the body weren't really right, like the old one.
I agree, yes.
They were kind of like chunkier or something, but so yeah. Anyway, that I used the Fender about 50%, and then when I wanted like something a bit thicker sounding, I had this Corsair Les Paul with P90 pickups. So it's a bit of it's probably mostly P90 and Stratocaster, like single coil on the album.
Nice.
But then I guess there was a few other weird, just like random guitars thrown in there for certain parts. If I needed another sound, there's other guitars laying around the studio that I would pick up. Like I know I used this Hofner 173, which kind of looks like a Stratocaster, but it's more like weird and funky looking with 3 humbucker pickups. Yeah. I'm using that guitar in the Proud Woman music video. It's like a white Hofner. And then I also used, sometimes I know I used just SG with humbuckers as well if I wanted humbucker sound.
Yeah. Gotcha. In the video for Low Road, the one that you did for Guitar World, what sort of it looks like a Les Paul, but I don't think it is a Les Paul, is it? It's something else.
Which video?
The Sick Riffs one that you did for Guitar World, where you're playing Low Road, and it looks like you're playing
Yeah, that's the Corsair. It's like just a Les Paul copy. Okay. It's a brand called it's a guy called Larry Corsair, and he makes like hand built Les Pauls. And sure. I think his goal, I think his big idol is Peter Green. So he sort of designs. I think he started out customizing Gibsons and making the pickups to try to come as close to Peter Green's tone as he could. So that was kind of how he got started, and then he started to build his own guitars. And
okay, fair enough. Hey, look, I'll just do a time check. I know John's allocated 20 minutes to me, but do you have somebody calling through now, or can we chat a bit longer?
I think I have until 30, so we got 8 minutes to go.
Okay, rightio. So did you use actual amps, or did you use a Kemper or something like that?
No, it's the main amp on the album is a Gibson from the 60s. It's Gibson Ranger. It's like a 4x10 combo amp.
Yeah.
And then I also was using one Silvertone. I can't remember the model number exactly, but it's like a small 1x12 combo Silvertone amp from the 60s as well. And those were the 2 main ones.
Yeah, and was there a reason why you use them specifically? I mean, obviously vintage gear has, the right vintage gear has an unbelievable sound. And is that just what it came down to? You just identified that the sound was going to produce the best results for you?
Yeah, well, like especially that Gibson amp, I've had that one since I was like 18 years old. So there's just something. It's probably just one of those things where I got used to the sound, and now it just like sounds right to me. And whenever I use a lot of other amps, it just never feels right because it has quite like a distinct tone to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where I've like grown attached to it, to be honest. But
you're used to what it sounds like. I get that. See, I use Galley and Kruger bass amplification, and I mean, there's better stuff out there. I know that, but I'm so used to in terms of probably reliability, to be honest with you, and stuff. But
it's a bit funny. It's a little bit funny though, because whenever I like Google that amp, then all I read is people saying that it sounds like shit and stuff. So
yeah, well, they're not using it right. That's the point. They don't understand it. Well, the interesting thing is, you just told me you got it when you were 18, and you've grown up with it, and so you've learned how to use it. You've learned how to bring its full colours to life. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And did you have to? Did you use many effects? Because it doesn't sound like you have. It just sounds like you've driven the amplifier and you've got this killer sound out of it. Because I think that's what I like about your playing is it's playing that sounds like it's coming directly from the fingers.
Yeah, I do use pedals, but like especially when I'm recording, it's pretty minimal because I usually don't have like my whole pedal board hooked up. I maybe just take one pedal at a time. And I know I use booster pedals quite a bit, so that it's more just boosting into the amp. Like I use an MXR micro amp a lot. That's probably on like every song, actually. Even when I have like a cleaner tone, I usually have the micro amp on when I'm recording.
Okay.
And then I also use like a treble booster. Sometimes like it's a jam pedal treble booster, but when I'm using that one, I have it on like the bass setting, so it's the more like thicker sounding.
I can hear that.
It's not really boosting the treble on that setting, but
yeah. Okay, gotcha. Mate, these conversations are over way too quickly, especially when I'm speaking to an expert guitarist such as yourself. So, look, good luck with everything. Well, with this bloody COVID thing is all said and done, I truly hope you guys and Heidi and her band can come down to Australia as some sort of a double bill Swedish extravaganza. I truly love that. So, look, congratulations on what you've done here across your new album, Holy Moly, and you're a tremendous guitarist, mate, so long may you continue to play the rock and blues and soul as you have.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. All the best with everything.
Hey, take care. Bye.
You too. Catch ya. Well, there it is, the rock and Swede himself, Zack Anderson from Blues Pills. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and thank you so much for listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. Please tune in again.